All right, welcome back to another episode of Arthritic Bourbon Bikers. We are out in the garage. We apologize for the noise, if there is any, of cars going by, the birds chirping, the wind blowing. So we decided to make another podcast, and today the topic is what?
The LBS, the local bike shop. What makes a great local bike shop?
Local bike shop. So one of the things we always try to encourage folks, like, it's not as if we don't buy things on Amazon.
Right.
All right, we do. We do buy things online and have them shipped, particularly, we're in the midst of the pandemic. Lots of people are getting things purchased and bought. But at the same time, we definitely know the value of having a great local bike shop.
Yeah.
And we are fortunate to have several great local bike shops here, actually, in Columbia, Missouri.
Yep.
I think partly of that is attributed to the fact that we have great trail systems here. We have the MKT, we have lots of local park trails, Hinkson Creek Trail, all these different trails that have been created. We also have then the Katy Trail, which is a major trail in Missouri and in the United States. So we have I think, a really great opportunity to have because we have some local bike shops here that really take advantage of that. Not to mention, our city does a great job of promoting bicycling or cycling in general as an alternative method of transportation. We have lots of streets with bike lanes, and most motorists around here are pretty familiar with cyclists and realize it's a big cycling town. We also have the benefit of having several colleges and universities in our town, and so those students wind up being pretty big users of bicycles as well. So, how do you want to kick this off?
Well, I'm a list guy. So I kind of made a list. Not that we have to, sort of perseverate on that, but I like to keep my thoughts straight, or try to.
Yeah, that's great.
And so I just, started talking about, or writing a few things down. And one of the obvious things is just, a good local bike shop has a deep bench and a lot of expertise. One or two key people, but there's always seems to be locally here, in all the places, but I go to Waltz much of the time, and they just have a lot of expertise about different types of cycling. I mean, they can talk to you about gravel riding, about single track, about road riding, about touring, and some of these guys have some serious experience to draw upon from years back or last weekend. That's, to me, that's invaluable.
That's very true. So we talk a lot about Waltz Bike Shop because that's kind of what's closest to us and that's who we use a lot. And certainly Mark and Sarah, who are kind of the managers, and Mark's kind of the guy that runs the shop side of things, and Sarah runs the store side of things. But they have tons of, Sarah's been there for 20 plus years as manager of that bike shop, and Mark probably just about as long in the service side. And they have years and years of knowledge about bicycling, whether it's road biking, mountain biking, trail riding, campus riding, all those things. And they've got bikes from price ranges of super affordable all the way to high-end, order, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, there's probably no ceiling to what could be done.
Yeah. So, and I think what's nice about what we see at Waltz, just to kind of as a general overview, is just the variety you can get there. They've got a little bit of everything. On top of being a bike shop, they also have outdoor gear, a little bit of outdoor gear, and they also have a little bit of exercise equipment. So one little section of their shop is kind of focused on exercise equipment that you can keep in your house and use a little bit as well. So they've got kind of a mix there that sort of covers a wide gamut of possibilities.
Yeah.
They even have, bags, some cycling bags. Not a lot, but some bikepacking bags. And, they've got to be smart about it.
Yeah, can't be too heavy on inventory that may not move, But some of that brings me to a word I put down, which is something, I don't say this word often, but it's basically pedigree. Because they've been in the game so long, and they have relationships with local cyclists who have been doing it and even been global touring cyclists, that there's a there's something that goes beyond their individual sort of experience as individual bike mechanics or cyclists, but the pedigree is there, and it sort of just gives this feeling of, oh, we're going to Waltz, you're going to be taken care of, because they've just got, you know, volumes of wisdom.
There's also something interesting they do, that any bike you purchase there has lifetime maintenance.
Yeah, free labor.
Labor maintenance. If you have to have parts and things like that, you're still going to have to pay for those, but it does have lifetime maintenance, which is kind of a nice little feature. And I don't know, maybe some of the other bike shops do that as well. I'm not sure, but definitely that's kind of a neat selling point from the service side of things. I think the other thing is they've got multiple people working on bikes in there. So you'll see anywhere from 1 to 4 people at any one time working in the shop area just doing work on bikes. You talk about a deep bench, that's a deep bench. They've got quite the staff who are there at different times working on bicycles. Not every bike shop in town has that.
Yeah. Well, what I've found is interesting is among those folks, and I've seen a couple guys come and go because they move on to something else, but they show up at the events as well. And so they're still part of the community. But it seems like each one of these folks that tend to be working on bikes, assembling or whatever, they have their own sort of areas of particular expertise. Like one of them happens to be a guy who does a lot of touring and knows all about dynamos. And the other one is the cyclocross. And so they'll just banter back and forth, and they'll go, hey, come over here and tell me what you think about this. And so you can't walk in there without learning something. You know, good. That's another thing in a good local bike shop, is that you're going to learn something if you just sort of shut up and listen.
You're talking about other bike shops here in town. We have another bike shop called Triathletics, and Steve is the owner there. And they've been in business again for a really long time, probably 25 plus years. I don't know how many exactly, but Steve is a guy, and you can tell from the name, Triathletics, he was a triathlon guy.
Yeah.
So he was into running, swimming, and biking. And he's still in the store. He's an older guy now. He's still coming to the store regularly. The store's still open, and they're still focused on those things. But he's a guy, when you talk about tapping into different expertise, he's a guy that if you're trying to figure out a specific shoe,
Yeah.
he's really good with shoes, like running shoes, biking shoes. That's kind of his niche.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess that's the thing you kind of figure out too, is that while Steve at Triathletics sells bikes still, he's a Kona dealer and some other brands is there as well, but he kind of has his little corner of the world that he sorts of operates in. And if you're interested in any of those areas of triathlons, he's kind of a guy you can go to, and he's got experience. He's a runner.
And people in town will say that to you. You talk about foot pain when running, and like, what did you go Triathletics? You know, because they'll sort you out.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned Kona, because you know, I came here at the very beginning of college, right? So I was a Columbia person since 1989, and since that time, I've seen Triathletics move locations and change their lineup, and now they're a really big Kona dealer. And it used to seem like it was all road bikes. Now there's some serious single track guys working in that shop, and they're enthusiastic about it. You know, you can talk to them about their Kona mountain bikes, man. They get a different demeanor, and they're excited. So that's cool to see too.
And Kona's an interesting brand. If we kind of sidetrack on that topic for a minute, but they're an interesting brand that they're kind of diversifying into lots of things, and they have for a while. But they do have a bike they call the World Tourer that is sort of very specialized from the perspective of being a pinion drive, I would call it more of a road version, not really an off-road touring bike. Lots of guys are taking them off-road, you know, putting a little bit different tire and kind of still doing the trail side of things. But man, they get rave reviews from the people who use them and just absolutely love their bikes. So, and then, you know, we've got other bike shops in town. We've got Clunks, and they're kind of more, I'd call a small shop. So kind of a one guy. He has in the past had two, but I think he's back down to one guy. And he sort of specializes in some, I would call them more small brand type stuff. So he'll do Surly, and he'll do Jones, right? The Jones bikes, and what's
You
the
said
other?
Jameis and Niners in there.
Jameis and Niner. Like, he's doing some stuff like that. So he's kind of got his own little niche market too.
Yeah, yeah.
And you and I have been in there a couple times, and we've laughed about how when you go in this place, you kind of feel like you're digging through like an old parts store, like an old auto parts store. So if you've ever been in an old auto parts store that's been around since the 50s, and there's stuff hanging on the walls, and maybe it's deep and behind a couple of other things out front, you look back there and it's this thing that's been hanging there probably for 20 years or whatever. And maybe it's not that long with clunks, but I'm using that as an example. And you feel like you can dig around and find something, and you're like, oh, I've been kind of looking for one of these, this 1967 Chevy, headlight trim piece. You found at Clunks, and it's and he used to kind of be involved more in the used bike market too, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if that's still the case, but
I don't know. But he does have those little bargain bins, and you'll find something you didn't know you needed. And you're like, oh, I need to have that. I've got a part on the bike now that I got there, and a couple little water bottle cages, and it's just fun. It's like going to the dime store when you were a kid, 1977. But they have excellent and new bikes, But it's there is that sort of almost a nostalgic feeling, because you can root around and find cool stuff, and he has more inventory in that small shop than you would think, as regarding bike touring and bags and stuff, and sort of just cargo.
it's packed in there tight. There's definitely not a lot of showroom space, let's just say.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of a one-man walk around
yeah.
show. When you walk in there, you get 2 or 3 people in there, the place is just pretty crowded.
Yeah. And he's always doing the work. He's always working on bikes, putting them together.
Yeah.
It's neat. It's a neat joint.
And the other bike shop we have in town is called Cycle Extreme, and I would say they're geared more towards the road cyclist.
Yeah.
A little bit of mountain bike stuff, but really focused on GT,
Specialized.
You'll see a few other
They have Giants. I think they do Giants now, I think.
Yeah, they got a few bikes like that in there, but really seems to be more road cyclist focused.
Yeah, I think so.
So you kind of see these niches that sort of bear themselves out. So yeah.
Yeah, it's neat. And we are blessed in this town with all the bike shops, all the green space, the trails. It's, another thing I was glancing at my phone, a thing I wanted to make sure and bring up too was we have all these, because we have the bike shops and we have a very forward-thinking community, and we have all those trails, lots of community events. Now we have some micro breweries and even a distillery in town, and people just sort of come together and orchestrate these events. All that's been kind of, put on hold right now during the COVID-19 pandemic. But man, there's a peddler's jamboree. There's just always something next that you can choose to participate or not, but the bike shops are involved, and they do a great job. Really do.
It's a combination, I think, too, of having good bike shops, an active cycling community, and then also we have that benefit of having the Katy Trail. MKT and the Katy Trail are the 2 big draws. So a perfect example of before this all kind of hit was, every year they have this donut festival out at Rocheport.
Yeah.
And, it's about a 14-mile ride to Rocheport, maybe from here? In ballpark, 20 mile?
Maybe a little. I think it's closer to 20.
Maybe 20. People will all get together and they'll ride out to Rocheport. And
from here, I guess it's probably 14 from downtown.
Yeah, from downtown, I think it's maybe 14. But anyway, they'll go down to Rocheport and they'll have this festival thing, and they eat donuts, and there will be music and whatever, this little small town on the Katy Trail, and then everybody comes back.
Yeah.
And there's, they have the Peddler's Jamboree, as you mentioned. Columbia is pretty famous for what they call the Roots and Blues Festival, which is a barbecue and blues music festival, usually happens. There's always activities going on here. True False Festival was just over, which is a film festival, which is a large film festival.
Yeah, it's become a big deal.
Probably second in the U.S., it's probably the second largest film festival in the United States, behind Sundance.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of bicycle activity always going on with all these events. Like you said, we have the benefit of that, and you couple that with things like the university's football games and just activities that are always going on. There's something going on here all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to be located in the center of the state too. You know, between Kansas City and St. Louis, so we sort of, you know, are the next big thing on the I-70 corridor. You know, where the intersection of 63 goes north and 54 is nearby. So this is kind of the crossroads to get to any part of the state. I think, you know, for the most part.
Yeah, we're right on Interstate 70, so that really puts us on the map for having traffic come through here. I think one of the other things about bike shops that I didn't really realize, and this is just because I had zero experience with it, was that almost any bike shop can order just about any brand.
That was news to me, really.
I did not realize this was the case. So I thought it was kind of like a car dealership. So you're a Trek dealer, you're a Kona dealer, you're a Surly dealer, whatever it is. You're kind of pretty much limited, and that was it. Until I went to start looking at the Surly ECR and started talking to different people, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I can get you one of those," even though nobody was particularly on the dealer list with Surly. Apparently, there are sort of like centralized purchasing companies that they buy parts from and other things, but they can also buy bikes from, that they can get and sell to you at the same retail price as anyone else. So it's not as exclusive, I guess, as I thought it was. And so if you're in a town where you have a local bike shop, but they're not a particular dealer for a brand, it's probably worth going in there and talking to the folks in there and saying, "Hey, if I wanted this kind of a bike, could you order it? Could you get it for me?" Now, the downside of that is they might not have anything in there for you to ride, test ride, or try it out. But
well, they can shepherd you through like a warranty issue. Because one of the sad things in my mind is that I wasn't able to buy the Fargo here locally because at that time of year they were just all spoken for. None were around. And this was like the last one. It was in St. Louis at an REI. And they had dropped the price, so I bounced on it. As I crossed my self-control threshold, I said, "I'm going to have this bike now." But so I didn't get to buy it locally, and so I don't have those perks about the free labor and things like that. But Walt treats me really, really good because I'm always kind of in there bugging them about stuff. But they were able to warranty some brakes because I had changed some brake configurations and levers, and it was just a real fluke thing. I had a leak in my hydraulic fluid. They said, "Well, I'm sure they'll warranty that out for you." And it's happened a couple times. And if you have a relationship with those guys, they'll be able to warranty things out that you probably wouldn't have thought could be warrantied out.
yeah, it's probably important to know too that I bet a lot of these components have warranties separate of the company because we're buying, whether it's SRAM stuff or roll-off stuff or, every component has a manufacturer, and a lot of those probably have manufacturer warranties too, I bet.
Yeah. There's just a ton to learn by kind of hanging around those guys and talking, which is another thing that I really appreciate about these bike shops. Again, I spend much more time in Waltz than anywhere else, and they'll talk to you. And what's funny is while they're building their rapport with everybody, they were talking to me about people who had done rides I want to do years ago. They talked about guys that had roll off on a Fargo and different things. And so you learn from people you never met through the bike shop because those folks might have moved, but they're talking about that now. They say, "Well, yeah, we still hear from him once in a while. I'll ask him," And so it really is a community. If you kind of really go in there and regularly and learn from them, they actually learn from you. These guys, they kind of ask us what our experience was down in Big Bend Ranch State Park and different things, and so I think there's really some mutual benefit.
I would agree.
Relationship.
I also think that a lot of those guys would be great if you needed to test ride a bike and they didn't have it. They probably have contacts with someone who might have a bike in the size or style that you're considering that they might be able to pick up the phone and call them and say, "Hey," if they know you well, "Hey, would you bring your bike in and be willing to let somebody test ride it?" I'm sure there's a ton of cyclists out there that'd be more than happy to bring their bike in and let somebody test ride one.
Yeah. I had never seen that until we went to some boat shows. People that they'll bring their 40-foot sailboat in for a boat show because that's the only one in that part of the country, and they'll just put it in the show. And yeah, people will probably do that with a bike because you get a little pride in your bike. You're like, yeah, I'll bring the ECR in. You know?
Sure. Yeah.
And then you, kind of get to kind of contribute.
Yeah. What else? What else is on the list? Anything?
Well, this is a funny one because I'm a nerd, but I put parking and access because if you're in downtown Columbia, that's a trial. Just parking is terrible because even if it's a bike shop, but you're not always riding your bike there because sometimes you can't. And so ample parking space and a little place to pedal around when you're getting work done. That's actually important, and I hadn't thought about that as much until I started really making some changes to my bike.
Makes a huge difference for me. Holy cow, I hate cramped parking, number one. It just drives me crazy. But it's so nice to have, we just talked about the comparison between one bike shop that's a really small space, there's just not a lot of room in there, to a place like Waltz, honestly, which is big, spacious building, lots of room in there. They got a ton of bikes in there, but it's a big place. But also there's just tons of room outside. There's a big parking lot. There's a place you can ride around the whole outside of the building if you need to test something. There's even some back streets that are right there off the back of that building. You can take a bike down the back street, turn around and ride it back, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Makes it nice to be able to test out any work that's been done and stuff.
Yeah.
And those guys also, a good local bike shop, this is probably true for everybody out there that has a local bike shop that they use, but I dropped in there the other day because I had a weird noise, and of course they're doing the whole, social distancing thing, so they've got special things set up so the main lobby area is closed, and they kind of have this side back access set up with an overhead tent and, appropriate distance from the door, and they come out and greet you, gloved up or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just rolled up there, no appointment, no nothing, and said, hey, I got a noise. Could you take a look at it real quick? Because I was on the bike, in the middle of a ride. I drop in there and the guy's like, yeah, give it to me real quick and I'll do it. And he takes it, puts it on the stand, runs it through some paces, makes a couple tweaks. Let's take this and see how it does. That's the kind of thing that you're looking for service-wise from a local bike shop, is not that you're going to get that every time, but if you're in the middle of something, if they're willing to take a quick break and just look at something real quick, that's really fantastic.
Yeah.
But those guys, boy, their service department, it's booked out.
Oh, yeah.
Especially this time of year in the spring, everybody's starting to ride more, particularly in this particular time with the pandemic thing going on. They are booked out. So I called the other day and they said that it was like a week to 10 days to get an actual appointment to get a bike looked at. So they're super busy right now.
Yeah.
But they'll still, if you need something really bad, they'll sneak you in. And we've had numerous times we've went and talked to Mark, maybe bought a bike, maybe we're getting ready to go on a trip, and he says, hey, if something crops up right before you have to leave, just let me know, we'll work you in.
We'll do it, yeah.
Because he knows you're getting ready to go out of town on a trip. Man, you can't beat that kind of service when somebody understands that you're not just riding around campus or doing your daily around the block loop. You're actually going on a tour.
You're going somewhere to live off the bike.
Right.
For a little while,
Yeah.
That's huge. That really is. And that's what I mean when I also say their experience, because a lot of the folks that tend to work there long term, they've done that. They have done 2 years on the bike at some point in their past, and they'll tell you some of the wisdom they gleaned from that. And you mentioned the camping gear, they're still doing it, and so they'll tell you, this sleeping pad was good, but I found this, or this is a way to repair them. They'll really kind of give you some advice to help you get more mileage out of your product rather than selling you a brand new $300 piece of equipment. I've really come to respect that too. So it's like-minded folks. So.
Anything else?
I don't think
that's
pretty
your
much
list?
it. Yeah, pretty much spent.
Yeah, I guess the point in all of that is that I still order stuff on Amazon. I buy products on there, but I do still try to go to Waltz, the local bike shop here, and buy products from them just to support them. I know it's one of the ways they make money. They make money selling bikes, yes. They make money in the service department, yes. But also I try to buy some products up there, even though maybe I could save a couple bucks buying them online. Still try to go up there, still try to buy things and support them and kind of keep things going. Because, man, it's so nice to be able to roll in there and have competent people who understand what you do, who are there to kind of support your endeavors, but also give you great advice before you drop money on something that may or may not work.
Yeah. As far as being a consumer, I have a bit of trouble putting a lot of faith in online reviews. I see the value and I use them, but you never really know. Is this just someone who is angry about something and giving a bad review, or how much, but if I'm going into the bike shop and really talking to them, kind of the old-fashioned way of doing it, I have a little more faith in some of that feedback, and so that's what I do, and I'll buy a product there because of that, whether it's grease, chain lube, whatever, because they've put it through the paces.
Yeah, same exact thing. Whenever I had the bike shop do the tubeless setup on the ECR, and when I'm in there, I asked Mark, I'm like, hey, I want a good plug kit. What do you recommend? Boom, he just grabs one off the shelf and says, I recommend this. Works really good. Here, try this. Take it with you in case you need it. They don't try to sell me something I don't need. They'll certainly sell me anything I want, but he never recommends things that, are just fluff. It's, hey, I think you need this and here's why. And even like before we went on the trip to Big Bend, he was saying, here's some things I think you ought to put in your maintenance kit.
Yeah.
I said, I'm building a maintenance kit, anything you think I need. And one of them was, he's like, you need another master link for your chain. And he didn't actually have, the ECR is a 1x12, so it's got kind of the little narrower chain. He actually didn't have one in the packet, like in a package to sell me. So he went and opened up a package that had a full chain in it, took the master link out, and sold it to me and said, I'll reorder another one to put in this package. Take this one with you because I know you're going on this trip.
Yeah, you're going right away. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he just broke one out and sold it to me. And I think that's the kind of stuff you get out of your local bike shop that you're not going to get online from Amazon.com. There's a lot of great things on Amazon, and I like them, and we have affiliate links and all that stuff. We do all that stuff too, but there's a lot of value that comes from the local guys.
Yeah.
So I guess the point is, get out there and support your local bike shop. Buy your bikes locally if you can. You can't always, but if you can, support them locally. Get your work done there when you can. Buy product from them sometimes and promote them, because everybody needs to know who the good shops are. I'm sure there are shops that are not great. I don't know. We're pretty fortunate here, but maybe there are shops that are not so great, but support the good ones that are out there. Kind of keep it going, because if you don't have a good local bike shop, and maybe you don't, kind of that you're missing that component. And to get work done when you can't figure something out yourself, it's a hassle if you got to drive somewhere to take your bike.
Yeah.
So get out there and support your local bike shop. Thanks for watching. Thanks. This will be on YouTube. All the podcast systems that are out there that Anchor distributes to, which is 10 or 12. So give us a review if you don't mind. If you're on a podcast, give us a review. It really helps our distribution and gives us some feedback about what you like and don't like. We appreciate you following along, and have a good time. Get out there and ride your bike.